The preliminary hazard list is one of the first earliest hazard analysis techniques that is conducted in the system life cycle. It's conducted as early as possible in the concept definition phase of the system life cycle. It can extend into the preliminary design phase of the system life cycle. But again, it happens very early and is completed typically very early in that concept definition phase. The preliminary hazard list technique generally goes in line with the concept and preliminary design hazard analysis types. So the concept and preliminary hazard analysis types in that early phase of the system life cycle is when the preliminary hazard list is conducted. The preliminary hazard list technique is systematic, and it uses engineering resources, but it also incorporates a bit of brainstorming technique. The outcome or the goal of the PHL is to identify some of the most hazardous areas of the system so that resources and safety design criteria can focus on those areas. After the preliminary hazard list, we should have an idea of top-level hazards and safety critical functions, just how hazardous might our system be. And this is, again, just to illustrate that the preliminary hazard list is the starting point of the hazard analysis flow. It starts here at the beginning, and the output of the PHL, we will see, becomes the input to the PHA, the preliminary hazard analysis. So the preliminary hazard list outputs flow as inputs to the preliminary hazard analysis. We'll see that in just a little bit. PHL is a list. Preliminary hazard list is documented on a worksheet, and each list is grouped by hazard source types. Hazard source is one of the components. Remember, this is the HS component of the hazard triangle. So hazard source types are the higher level system things, the hardware, the functions, the software. Energy sources are examples. Below hazard source types are hazard source items. This is still in the HS component of the hazard triangle, but here are some examples of hazard source types at the top, and then hazard source items that flow below them. These are going to be plotted on our worksheet here in just a moment. Just one more example of the hazard source types versus items from your text, and the ACE missile example that we will go into in just a second here. Here are the higher level hazard source types, and then down is the hazard source items, just as a further example. So the types and the items. Here is your sample worksheet for the preliminary hazard list. It only has a few columns. It's very preliminary in nature. We have supplied this sample worksheet as a Word document in the resources section of your learning platform. Block 1 identifies the hazard source type that we just talked about, while the hazard source item also comes from the engineering documents. And here's an example from your text. The conceptual engineering information that was given in your text in figure 7.11 of the ACE missile system is adapted and placed on the PHL worksheet. We're going to use energy sources as our example. So the hazard source type, energy sources, this will become the item that goes in block 1 of our worksheet, and every separate hazard source type will have a separate PHL worksheet. There will be a separate PHL worksheet for each of the 4 hazard source types in this example. Okay, we're going to use the items underneath energy sources, and we're going to place the items down in column 2. That is, the hazard source items, explosives and electricity, etc. will be in there. For ease of illustration, we just selected a couple. So now, when we identify the items under hazard in the hazard column, we use hazard checklists. Hazard checklists generate ideas on specific hazards that relate to the HS item, the hazard source item that's listed. Okay, remember to document all hazards, even if they're later proven to be non-hazardous. In the hazard effects column, that identifies what will happen if the hazard results in a mishap. Will it be inadvertent operation, misoperation, failure to operate, death, injury, damage, etc.? Remember, the analysis is preliminary. As such, we really only have two components of the hazard. We do not have all three components of the hazard triangle. That's okay. They will be identified later if needed. But for right now, we get our hazard source items, the hazard, and then the hazard effects, and that gives us a good starting point to flow into the next one. In the in-depth example given in your text, it ends with table 7.5, and it identifies top-level mishaps and safety critical functions. So that's the output of the preliminary hazard list. The hazards that are identified, the hazards that were identified up in the preliminary hazard list, are condensed and boiled down into top-level mishaps and safety critical functions. That helps system designers know where to focus their safety-related resources. Additionally, the hazards identified in the preliminary hazard list, those will serve as inputs into the preliminary hazard analysis. Preliminary hazard analysis is going to be covered in the next video.